Hi there, folks, and thank you for joining this afternoon. Just kicking over the top of the hour now, and we will get on with our webinar for this afternoon. Have you outgrown your accounting software? I am Hayden McCall, and Ray and I start from Auckland, across Australia and New Zealand, and joined today with Ben, Rob, and Richard for our panelists today for the meeting topic. So we're going to go through a bit of a series of questions. Ben essentially is in a bit of an interview mode, talking about his experiences with replacing small business accounting solution of Xero in Mons Royale with an ERP solution. No surprises, sponsor is NETSUITE. That solution is NETSUITE. We won't be talking about NETSUITE in particular, more about Ben's experiences in going through that, sharing that with you. Rob and Rich have experience across that whole sector of software, and also Rob's experience with, I think, 7,000 clients, he said, Rob, with under Pitcher Partners. So a lot of them have been through this experience. So without further ado, well, a little bit of further ado actually, we're keen to hear from the audience in terms of your questions as we go. We'll address them in the context of what we're talking about, or we'll keep an eye on them, and if we don't deal with them towards the end. Hopefully have some time left to do that. Okay, so without any more further ado, Ben, give us a little bit of a background about Mons Royale, pre-ERP, and where you'd got to and why you sort of, the level of pain you were in.
Yeah, so Mons Royale was a merino apparel company based in Wanaka, New Zealand. So if you don't know Wanaka, you might know Queenstown, and then we're an hour further into the hills from there. And we were started 10 years ago by a professional skier who came by lineage from a sheep farm, a merino sheep farm, and he saw the opportunity to mix, I guess, the family business of wool with some fashion and a highly technical product that would support him, in the lifestyle of a pro skier, traveling around the world, climbing mountains, skiing down mountains, enjoying the pubs and clubs and the evenings out as well. And so Mons was really founded as, taking performance, apparel through every, the lifestyle of people who live in the mountains. And that's really where we've grown the business from. I joined the business 5 years ago, and that's when we were on, I think, 5 or 6 instances of Xero. And my first week, actually I arrived as a consultant. And for all my sins, I was challenged to turn my consulting advice into a job and see it through, which was horrifying. And they basically said, look, the stock system doesn't talk to the accounting system doesn't talk to the website. We're not really sure whether the website works or not. And by the way, we don't really know what the right price is for some of the products. And so that was the first week. And the kind of stuff, the kind of behaviors that were going on in the business were, every day there were, 3 or 4 hours of stock journals being done just to reconcile products that have been sold the day before in the correct currencies in the correct places. And at the time, Mons was trading in 6 different, essentially, subsidiaries in 3 different languages and 8 or 9 different currencies. So immediately there wasn't much of a decision for me other than an ERP solution was the one that we, was the step we needed to make. We missed those middle years of, maybe a mid-tier service offering before we went right to ERP. And we jumped in with NETSUITE after some good, careful consideration.
Yeah. So the scope of the operation, just not starting on farm, you're essentially sourcing from manufacturers, or what's the scope of what Mons looks after?
Yeah, that's increased in the last 5 years. So at that point, we're buying FOB goods out of China. So we were driving the sourcing plans. We were saying, hey, we'd love it to be this wool and these things. But now we're planning all the way. We've got a sort of 5 to 10 year view on our wool. And we're now tracking that all the way through our supply chain into the final goods. So we've matured a lot in those 5 years. Okay,
so it's essentially, sourcing out of Chinese manufacturer into retail all around the world, and online sales and a bit of inventory, I suppose, or minimising inventory, be the key challenge, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes, yeah. There's 650 retail stores around the world in most major markets, and then we have 3 of our own retail stores here in New Zealand, and that's something that we're looking to extend.
Yeah, and how big's the business in terms of staff?
We started, my first week, I was number 7, and we've just ticked over 57. So we've it's almost been a person a week, a person a month for the last 5 years almost. So.
Yeah. All good. Okay. So in terms of background, there you go. So if this will flick through, realization that accounting solution wouldn't cut it. You kind of talked to it a little bit there, but Ben, maybe there was just a point in time, and maybe that I guess senior level, executive, board level realization is probably the important one. What was the moment that kind of triggered it?
I think there was probably there was an opportunity for us at that 5-year point to continue to grow as a brand. And so a lot of the conversations at a board and a senior level were just how fast we can scale and the speed to market around new products and things like that. And the technology system was the major complaint for why we were slow to sell products and progress kind of, I guess, the order to bill cycle. So we wanted to take more orders, we wanted to build them faster, and wanted to get paid faster. And that was a laborious process. So immediately that was identified as a main barrier to growth. And so a lot of the, I guess, call to action or speed came from wanting to scale the business faster. And then the next thing was we took a firm view that technology, if technology is done right, technology should be considered before a person is considered from a resourcing point of view. So having a computer work out, or having a database work out the different NFX conversion and do a stock journal and automate through our accounting process was a lot cooler than putting someone on a desk. They live in paradise here in Wanaka, and then we put them on a desk in front of a spreadsheet. It didn't fit our culture. So our culture really quickly became, what the computer can do better, the computer should do. And that's how the ERP decision got made as well.
Yeah. Oh, nice to hear that because it's very common. People will just throw warm bodies at the problem. Richard, I guess you've seen, just broaden the conversation out, from Mons to the wider market. Richard, you've seen this across multiple scenarios.
Yeah, most definitely, Hayden. Being an analyst for NETSUITE, I'm afforded the opportunity to meet with a lot of businesses going through their unique experience or their unique journey. And if you go to the next slide, I've built a really, really ugly chart. So being an analyst by trade, I spend a lot of time on whiteboards, and this is one step better than a whiteboard scribble I'd normally do with my colleagues.
Ben and I had a laugh about this one. We had a little session yesterday. We had a little laugh saying this one hasn't been through the design department, has it?
Absolutely not. This is marketing free. But I think what's nice about the chart is even though every business has a unique experience and a unique journey, what we've picked up is there are certain patterns that most businesses go through. And of course, there's going to be deviations from that. But this hopefully will give a small business who's on their growth journey an understanding of where they might be in the continuum. So if you look at this chart, on the one axis, it's business complexity versus time. And the theory is for most businesses, over a period of time, their business will potentially become more complex. And business complexity is going to be probably a key theme or a key topic I'm going to touch on during today's conversation. So if you just look at the chart, I think when small businesses begin their journey, they generally look towards the most popular software application out there to run their business, namely Office 365 or a desktop productivity suite. So if you just click on the build, what's awesome, there we go.
Yep.
Awesome.
didn't explode quite so quickly.
So what we find is when small businesses start forming and they start conducting business, Excel spreadsheets are an amazing tool. You can do your base finances and you can store your transactions that you do with a couple of customers you have. You can store your customer details in a spreadsheet, so you've got a sense of customer relationship management. You can store your inventory on your spreadsheets as well. And you start running your business. So I like using the analogy of an individual who owns a utility vehicle and he does a garden service. And life is pretty good, but because he's done a bit of advertising in the local newspaper, more businesses coming in. And what he starts realizing is he's now got 3 or 4 data stores. He's running his finances in a spreadsheet, and he's running his inventory in a spreadsheet, and he's running his customers in a spreadsheet. And after a while, he starts detecting that something's breaking. Either customers are not contacted on time. He deletes the schedule by mistake, or spreadsheets start becoming relational to each other, and he starts creating cascading and relational spreadsheets. And he gets corruption in those spreadsheets. And at some point in time, as he starts growing in terms of business complexity, breakpoints are going to occur. So a breakpoint might, for example, be that the spreadsheet gets corrupted, or a customer visit is lost, or a lawnmower goes missing. And lawnmowers can be pretty expensive today. Or he has other inventory items that he uses that he might on-sell to clients when he's there, for example, fertilizer or manure and the likes. So as an organization's complexity starts rising, so it puts more and more strain on those spreadsheets to deliver an entire level of automation to that business. And at some point in time, the decision is often made to say, okay, so we understand cash flow kills businesses. How do we really address our core problem around our organization and solidify our cash flow, get an understanding of how our business is operationally running from a financial perspective, and start looking at things like tax integration and automation, and maybe also bank feed automation. And that is why, if you click on the next build, that is probably why the most important first core application that most businesses buy or invest in is an accounting software. And it's driven by multiple drivers, based on the need to control cash flow. There is also, if I start looking at some key drivers now, things like single touch payroll as well are starting to push organizations towards investing in systems that will allow them to become compliant. But although that level of compliancy is still very, very low, they don't need full-blown ERP systems. So what they essentially do is put down that accounting system, get the tax integration done, get the banking integration done, and then they start looking at the rest of their enterprise, because the rest of their enterprise is running on spreadsheets. So the spreadsheets are still running CRM, inventory, asset management, and the likes. And then they start looking at those spreadsheets going, well, you know what? We've still got problems with our customer relationship management. I remember I should have contacted Rich last week to do his garden, and I'm messing up and I'm not sticking to my schedule. So let's look at putting in a CRM system. Let's start putting in an advanced inventory system. Let's start putting in some better reporting that can look at all those systems as well. And so we start seeing an emergence of an accounting-centered application ecosystem evolving inside an organization, where they might have accounting as their core, surrounded by inventory, assets, CRM, reporting, and also spreadsheets still, because what we have found based on our experience is spreadsheets do a wonderful job of filling in the gap. So invariably, when you've got multiple applications, invariably the functionality in each and every application doesn't really meet your requirements, or the integration between applications isn't quite there. So you plug the gap with spreadsheets. And as an organization continues to grow in complexity, so say, for example, our garden maintenance chap has grown. He's now got a couple of staff on his books. He's got multiple motor vehicles. He's expanded through the city, and he's signed a partnership with another individual in another major city. So now we've got two organizations working alongside each other, being one distinct organization. We've also now branched out, and we're now selling a lot more supplies to gardens. We're now looking at corporate contracts. We're now doing hard and soft landscaping. So we've got multiple lines of business. Our business complexity is constantly rising. And what invariably happens at this point in time is there is a number of incremental factors and a number of binary factors that really compel a business at this point in time to start considering investing in an ERP. And what you find is, as the complexity starts rising, more and more breakpoints and levels of inefficiency start occurring again. And at this point, next build, please. Really, at this point now, this garden service potentially has got now multiple entities, not only even multiple sites. They might need multiple languages, and maybe the garden service has gone offshore. Who knows? the sky's the limit. Definitely, as organizations grow inside, there's increased regulation, more pressures from the tax office and from government. You'll also have multiple pressures around not only business complexity, but transactional complexity and volume. And you might have multiple owners or a complex organizational structure. And when you start looking at all these factors in combination, and guaranteed no one will nod their head and say, I've got everything on the left, everything resonates. Generally, what we see is there's one or two key catalysts that push an organization over the edge and really become that highlighting trigger point where they'll sit down and go, okay, our application complexity is too high, our business efficiency is too high, we want to carry on growing and we can't. This is when we need to start looking at an integrated platform or an integrated product that combines core financials with CRM, with inventory, residing on a singular data model with embedded business intelligence. We need to combine those financials and operational automation into a single system. So hopefully, in a very, very long-winded way, hopefully I've given everyone a bit of insight into the journey that many small businesses are on and given you some insights into where those breakpoints are going to be. And it's going to be unique for everyone, but hopefully from this slide, you can start seeing a couple of points to look out for.
Yeah, great. So the Excel spreadsheets disappear and the small mind explosions also do.
I'm going to marketing after this to dolly up the slide, I promise.
So Ben, I see you're kind of nodding at a few points through that, and you obviously touched on some already, but what's been the biggest impact for you moving into the ERP world?
Well, I would just say, I mean, I think that slide's a pretty romantic view of it. We had a lot more explosions along the way. So, and we continue to, but I think that's the fun of business. I think the biggest improvement has been just the confidence in our ability to trade. So we do like the bit that was really resonating there was just the, different ownership structures internationally. Anyone who's trading internationally, I can't see how an ERP isn't their first choice. I mean, for us, we have a Swiss subsidiary, we have an Austrian subsidiary that owns a Swiss subsidiary that, and we service, I think 9 different IRDs or equivalent around the world. And to be able to set up an entity and have that tax compliance happen from day one with little to no customization has been extraordinary. So it just gives us confidence when we say to a market, yep, we can come to market and here's our approach. The marketing guys get excited. Sales guys get excited. As an operations team and a finance team, we are really confident about how we trade. And that confidence of trade actually is quite infectious when you're growing your business, because you don't need different barriers for, hey, we can't sell, we do some strange transactions from goods from China to South America or wherever else we can sell stuff into Russia and whatnot. And those are complex transactions, but they're big transactions and they represent good revenue. So for us to have a system that can handle that has meant that we're much more confident and aggressive with our growth. And that's probably, that's the exciting end of it. And then the day-to-day is we don't have people who do boring jobs. People use a great system they enjoy, and that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, and I guess inventory control has been a key one, with the stock journals that were going on, just trying to catch up with sales versus in one system versus the other. You got one source of the truth from an inventory perspective.
Yeah, and I think in inventory, I mean, the most horrible thing about being a product-based business is you're essentially a stock trader first before you're anything else. So before you like your product and before you market your product, you've got to manage your stock units. And so knowing the value of them and their life cycle and where they are in the world accurately means you can make much better decisions. And we had things where we didn't know what was on a ship or what wasn't. And now we know what's on the ship and when it arrives and where it's going next. And that clarity of inventory position means that more deals can be done more often. Some of the behavior before was, we'll sell them that deal, we'll wait until it's picked and packed, and then we'll see what's left, and then we'll do the next deal. And that's not acceptable if you're trying to grow a world-class company. So.
Yeah, sure. So Rob, bring in some of your lessons across your client base.
Yeah, look, certainly what Ben's saying resonates. I think the biggest impact is just accuracy and completeness of information, which probably summarises what Ben said. Being able to get a total picture of the business, irrespective of whether it's, in this country, other countries, in this state, other states, often just between, depots or warehouses. can be a challenge when you're running some of these accounting packages that have often got add-ons that claim to provide inventory management or inventory and warehousing capability, but being able to sort of look across the entire business in a timely way, I think by far is the biggest impact or benefit that we see our clients realise when they move to ERP.
Yeah, all right, it's good stuff. So we'll keep moving on. Ben, just talk a little bit about the process that you guys went through to decide, how did you shortlist the solutions that were going to suit your purposes, and what did that process look like?
Yeah, so I think we probably didn't have, I would have preferred another 6 months to go through the exercise. I had a matter of weeks. And then I was reminded that my success in my new job was based on how successful this decision was. So it was a quite interesting time. But what I did is just threw the net really wide. I rang a whole lot of people I trust in technology and said, what do you use? What do you love? What do you hate? And where should I not bother looking? And I went through a process where we looked at Salesforce, because I'd had previous experience in that. But so that what that looked like was a Salesforce and a bundle of other add-on products that produce some form of an ERP system. There's obviously SAP was a discussion. We looked at NetSuite, and then we looked at some mid-tier guys, and we worked pretty hard to try and go into a mid-tier product. But we just kept running into more no's than yeses when it came to the system. But what we didn't know when we were making the decision was the system that says the most yeses, which was NetSuite, actually also is a bigger beast to tame, and then actually really enjoy the benefits from as well. So that second part of the journey was the next phase. But we had a really great process that we went through, and the more honest and direct the pre-sales guys were to us, the better the questions we could ask were, because it's just kind of, you don't know what you don't know. And NetSuite were really open about where they thought our limitation, where we would hit issues with our size and scale. And they're pretty frank about that. And there's always gotchas no matter what system you select. And then ultimately we got to the pin end of it and made the decision on NetSuite, and haven't really looked back actually. I'm quite wrapped with the progress that we've made with them, even more than we expected when we signed on.
So did you tap resources and form a project team around that evaluation, or it sounded like a few of it was on your shoulders? Yeah, I was going to say.
I was the project director, I was the project manager, I was the implementation consultant. But no, I had a wonderful colleague as well. We hired her 1 month into the project. I hired a new finance manager. The business didn't have a finance manager before that. So that was we put a team together, and then we worked with a team from NetSuite to implement the service as well. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And full requirements list, or how did you kind of approach it from a requirements perspective?
Basically we'd split the business into core, functional processes. So what do we do daily? And so for us, it's really simple. Everything's built around the idea that an order goes through a process, gets shipped, and then gets paid for. And so we just needed that process specifically to be able to work globally. And then the second part of that is then accounting for that. So we were kind of outcome led in our requirements, but then for sure went through a pretty comprehensive list of technical requirements. But looking back on it, we missed big opportunities, we missed scope for big opportunities in NetSuite we didn't even see at the time as well, around how we can do some of our other fixed asset registers, some of our other management of things in NetSuite that we stumbled upon, and been really wrapped with, that we weren't even in scope when we went into the ERP, which has been great.
Okay. So Rich, maybe broaden that out again. You sort of seen a few of these. What's your perspective on what works?
Can I talk about what doesn't work?
Yeah.
I'd like to. It
yes, you can.
I'm going to talk about, I see a lot of evaluation processes because I get involved in a lot of evaluation processes across industries and across the broader JPAC. I want to talk about two anti-patterns, and it's some advice or some learnings that we've gained just by monitoring a lot of businesses and the behaviors that they go through and the approaches that they take. So the one anti-pattern I want to talk about is what I call the feature function price evaluation criteria. If you take buying a motor vehicle as an analogy, if you lined up motor cars against each other, the different brands, and you had a tick box approach saying, does it have 4 wheels, a steering wheel, an accelerator? Invariably at the end of the process, you're going to come out with a comparison sheet of vendors looking incredibly similar. And at the end of 3 months of an evaluation process, you're going to be no further along the line of evaluation as to when you started. And we find that frustration with small businesses a lot because they've never really had to go through this process of evaluating an ERP platform before. So my advice there is, if you take the car analogy again, people don't buy motor vehicles based on the fact that they've got 4 wheels. They look at a motor vehicle based on a number of other factors like brand recognition, build quality, warranty. Those kinds of qualities need to be considered in the evaluation process because unlike a vehicle that you can buy and get rid of in 2 months, an ERP, once you put it in, is going to be there for quite a period of time inside your organization. And you have to be able to trust your vendor and realize that that vendor is going to be a strategic player in your business, not just a provider of technology. The other anti-pattern I want to talk about is what I call designing for today and not tomorrow. So I think, and it's a hard thing to do, right? Because small businesses, one of their key focal areas is cash flow, right? Because it can kill the business. So very often it creates a very short-term focus on the business. We've got to keep the business operationally running. We've got to keep money coming in the door. And that's the key focus. But really, when it comes to investing in an ERP, you have to look forward. You have to put those forward-looking requirements into your requirement and not just look at automating today's problems and challenges in business operations, but look forward and try and build that into your evaluation process as well. So that ultimately, when you're looking for things like agility, flexibility, and growth, that is built into your evaluation process too.
Yeah. Rob, anything further to add to this one?
Yeah, it's interesting listening to both Ben and Richard. Rich, one thing you should have added to your first ante, I think, because I do agree, those things like brand, etc., become important. In the space of ERP, the relationship you can develop with your implementation partner, I think I would add in there.
Yes.
A critical piece. We're finding, obviously, this is a space we play in, quite a bit. The way we would go about it with a traditional request for proposal is really, I think it's getting to a point where it's almost no longer fit for purpose. To your point, Ben, the time constraints often don't allow the luxury of going through all of that formality. The other thing that we're seeing is the cost that to implement these solutions these days is often, it's becoming a lot shorter. And so to charge a client for a 12-week selection process and then they're going to have a 12-week implementation, it's like, how do I show real value in that? So I think for us, we've sort of really tried to be creative. I think there's a couple of key things that are critical because typically small, medium enterprise aren't experienced at this piece. One is, and in some ways you probably brought this to the table there, Ben, being a consultant and worked in the space. I think you need somebody with expertise across the ERP space, what some of the products are, what their strengths and weaknesses are. What we're finding though, is after we do a more of a paper-based assessment of the organisation's needs and narrow down to perhaps 2 or 3 products, we're finding proof of concept type modelling a far more effective way than proposals and, to your point, assessing against functionality, because it's the next level of detail down that you start to see, am I going to be able to work with this partner who's showing me the product, one, and two, how does the product work at a more detailed level? Is it going to genuinely be able to do the function that we need the way we need it? So the proof of concept for us has become a real interesting way to sort of approach this in a different way to what traditionally has happened. And we've had some good success with that.
So you're getting into early prototyping. Your demo essentially is give me a demo that shows me my company and the key scenarios that are differentiating in our world, and how's your system going to deliver
Exactly. It's exactly what we do. We write the scenarios that we want demoed, as opposed to the standard pitch that usually organisations, your typical business partner community will want to come in and run through. And we're sort of saying, we don't want to see that.
Yeah.
We know that, to your point, whichever of the bigger brands, we know the brand, we know that, you're going to have this breadth of functionality, but it's how will that work for my organisation?
Yeah, I think one of the opportunities that Mons had, which other businesses don't get the luxury, is we went into it, to pick up on that same analogy. We kind of knew we wanted something that kind of looked like a car, but what we got really focused on is what are the big buckets the business does. So whether we called those wheels or not, that was what it was. But also what we were really prepared to do is to design our internal processes around the ERP. So that's actually something that NetSuite found quite difficult, because they said, oh, well, what's your standard process for what's your sales order fulfillment process? And we said, we don't have one, what's yours? And they said, well, you just click this button and this button and this button and it's done. And we go, okay, well, that's our one now. And so that blank slate was really awesome. But I've, in other hats, have supported other businesses who have gone through this ERP cycle. And the first thing I coach them on is just give up on how your process is now. So go through that pain and that grief that especially the finance team will experience, because it was happening that way before and it's going to happen different in a different sequence. It's really powerful opportunity to refactor, because the guys that designed the tool, if you're talking about a world-class ERP, they designed it to work really efficiently. That was their maniacal focus. So the moment that we as businesses customize what was built as an ERP, we're slowing the system down and we're taking it away from its core delivery, ability. So that's one of our big learnings, that we were lucky because we had a blank slate. But if I was to advise anyone again with the bigger businesses, go back to basics on business process, because the system was built to make your business go faster. And then customize it once you've settled in, rather than customizing as part of your requirements.
Yeah. So it's an element of...
I think it's a key success factor of implementation. If you can do that, you're going to have a lot less pain through that implementation process.
Yeah. So you really don't get into what your 2B scenario is going to be until you've almost selected the vendor, or you're down to at least, here are some, the last two. Here's two different ways that we could do things. Okay, we're prepared to do either.
Yeah. So whatever the car looks like, you didn't realize that you're looking for triangle wheels, but they still roll somehow, and that's fine. You go with it.
Right, question 4, pushing on. So Mons, significant growth. Are you using ERP the way that you envisaged you would be, Ben?
Yeah, I think we are, and we keep using it in ways that maybe we weren't anticipating as well. So it's become, because the mantra for us was a single source of truth, we're taking that as far as we possibly can. So when we're doing, we use it as our default database for a whole lot of other activities in the business relating to HR or, and leave planning and various other things. We've got a whole lot of the extension to our asset register now that we're developing our own retail stores. We've got some really great, custom records that we've built with inside NetSuite. So using the same NetSuite framework, we've built a system within the system for us to manage our retail program, with a really good line of sight on what signage we have in stores, what size that signage is, if we're going to go and reprint it, redo it, scale it, move it internationally, and that's all linked to the asset management bundle as part of NetSuite. So all of that stuff's nothing we ever anticipated, but because we got so excited about NetSuite's capability and flexibility, and that's probably true for a number of other ERPs, we've been able to really keep exploiting that idea that there's just one single source of truth for anything in the business. And any place that unifies marketing guys, sales guys, finance guys, and operations people, that's a really exciting place to be, because you're doing something right, versus everybody working in their own little bucket. And so I guess it's those collaboration points that we weren't expecting.
Yeah, good stuff. Rob, anything more?
Yeah, I think one of the things we're seeing is, because there's such pressure to implement quickly these days, taking a much more agile approach means that you get through your core implementation, but I think it's important to continue to think about improvement and really strengthening and expanding the way you're using these ERP solutions is where you'll really drive benefit over time. You know, don't sort of think implementation is 3-6 months, depending on size of the business, and then I'm done. I think it becomes a continuous improvement exercise.
And I'll just kind of speak in support of that as well. We had the finance manager and I, who were doing the implementation, we had a very defining NetSuite moment, and we were driving to a Christmas party or something, and two of us were in the car, and we just sort of said, there's no light at the end of this tunnel. This is the journey that we're going to be on forever. Because we'd started to get ourselves in this mindset that we're implementing something, and it's just such a distraction of a word. You know, it's just like, yeah, it's you're getting to your first MVP, and then your journey begins. And the best work we've done is when we realised that it's us as the business leaders to own and drive it, not to sit around waiting for a consultant or for NetSuite or someone to help us out. You know, the more clear we can be, the better we've been along the journey. And it's just utilisation and productivity in NetSuite was multiplied exponentially when we took ownership of the product, rather than waiting for someone else to come along and tell us how it should be used.
Yep, that's often the challenge in implementation, is getting the business to own that, you know, really own it and want to drive it.
Yeah, constantly living in a world of looking out to external consultants to solve your problem, answer your questions. Is like, no, guys, get in there, boots and all, work it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. This is an advisory one, and we've actually got an advisory one in the end. So I'm going to just with time, I'm going to skip through this, unless there's something specific you guys can talk to it, I'm sure, anyway. So tipping points for an accounting system. When should a business step up to ERP? We've kind of gone there already, but Rich and Rob, just talk a little bit in broader market terms. What do you see, you know, the other tipping points?
I think the big one for us that we see regularly is multi-entity organisations, which is, you know, was Ben's experience time and time again. I think that's the big ticket item. The other is once you start to get into any sort of complex budgeting and forecasting, and, you know, wanting to be able to report against multiples, they're probably the best telltale signs. Probably our first two questions when somebody approaches us in this space.
Yep.
Yeah, I say there may never be a tipping point, so we need to be cognizant of that. So some businesses can operate successfully on an accounting piece of software. It's all really based on complexity. I think a question we get asked as well: is there a magic revenue number that a business should fall within, where their tipping points should be occurring? We get asked that question very often, and really the answer to that is the tipping point is based mostly around business complexity and not about revenue. And I see, here I come with analogies again. Boiling frog and binary decision, to Rob's point, right? the binary decision, to Rob's point, is opening up another subsidiary. That's just really black and white. If you've got to open up another subsidiary, you've got no chance staying on accounting software. The boiling frog analogy is more subtle, and it happens over time where, for example, your transaction volumes are slowly creeping up, your operational inefficiencies are creeping up, your customer satisfaction is slowly decreasing. So everything is slowly but surely incrementally getting worse. And that's the boiling frog. It's more difficult to determine where that tipping point is. So a business constantly has to be looking forward, saying, you know, I'm experiencing pain now. What is my business going to look like in 6 months' time? At least they're afforded the time with the boiling frog. But with a binary decision, if a business is not looking forward with the intention of opening up a new subsidiary, they're going to be caught unawares, and they do need that 6-month window.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Okay, so small business accounting often and almost, I don't know what the percentage would be, but you know, nearly 100% there's a accountant involved who has probably introduced that accounting solution. They run their practice on it. It's embedded in the engagement you have with them. How does it change when you move to an ERP solution? You essentially cut that tie. Rob?
Yeah, I'd beg to differ. Maybe it's my definition of an accountant or picture partners. I mean, us as a business really was founded on the basis that we want to be business advisors, not their accountant. And what happens is with accounting software as we've defined it today is you tend to spend a lot of time pulling the reporting necessary together from multiple sources in spreadsheets, as opposed to being able to spend that time analysing the business and offering advice to the client around how they can improve their business, how they can, you know, make it more profitable, how do I get cash flow brought forward, because you've got a complete set of information in front of you. So I actually think that ERP empowers the good accountants, those that are really trying to help a business, be their advisor.
Okay. Ben, what was your experience?
Yeah, probably the same. I think that I'm not an accountant by training, and so I was always quite sensitive that, you know, I have a huge amount of respect for the profession, but, you know, when things get difficult, especially when it's multi-subsidiary, multi-currency, you know, it's international trade, you know, when you distill it all back down, not all accountants have all the answers. And sometimes, you know, accountants wanting to have firm answers got in the way of actually building a system that could actually deal with a lot of the complexity first. Because ultimately what it boiled down to were things are getting journaled anyway. So, hey, that's just how it's going to be dealt with until we know any better. So one of the thing with we had quite a loose relationship with the accountant during the implementation, because anyway, as they reviewed it, every possible point of the implementation, you could have had quite an academic review, you know, from an accounting point of view, exactly about how it should be used and how it shouldn't be. But what we really leaned on was NETSUITE's work they've done with all the different domiciles around the world to make sure they're tax compliant and trading in a way that we're able to produce, you know, the right report at the right time for the right jurisdiction. And so we really leaned on that. And then what it ultimately meant is we have a much more strategic relationship with our accountant. We couldn't take them all the way through the deployment process probably in some of the ways because of the speed in which we deployed. But afterwards, once we started producing the reports they were looking for, they just said, hey, this is absolutely fantastic. And then had some conversations with us about how to support some of their other customers to go through the NETSUITE journey as well. So it's ended up being a much more fruitful relationship than just them going through a screeds of incorrect transactions that were coming out of our old systems.
Yeah, so I guess there's a matter of selecting and being with the right relationship with your accountant, you know, going through that journey and maybe being prepared to go to market on that front as well.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So is ERP the answer to all your woes? You know, the spreadsheets disappear, the mind brain explosions disappear, or are there some other bits that need to come in before you get to that nirvanic state? Rob?
Sorry, Richard, but I'll throw some water on that graph of yours. The spreadsheets still exist from time to time. No, look,
absolutely.
Yeah, they certainly are, though significantly reduced. I think industry sector really starts to have a play in it. Without a doubt, ERP becomes core, but, you know, e-commerce, sophistication of warehousing based on the sort of products that you might be, you know, selling, can be all areas where I need to look at specialised solutions for some of those periphery pieces. It's just the reality of it. Probably the hottest area that we're seeing over the last 12 or 18 months is, and I think this is because certainly in Australia, the services industry has just exploded. HRIS, payroll, time and attendance management, they are often becoming as critical to the business as, you know, the products that might be being sold. And so there is still some need, but it's certainly, you know, a lot less than if you're running with an accounting system trying to cobble all of it together.
Ben, what's been your...
Yeah, I think we're pretty similar. I think for us, it's the kind of final mile on some of the more you know, specific areas of the business, like we use RF Smart as one of the add-ons we use for some of our warehouse management, which is just picking and packing orders, and that's just that's the sharpest end of the essentially NetSuite is the tool anyway. And so what we look for, you know, where there are add-ons or other solutions required, we're looking for partners that are kind of have deep relationships with NetSuite. and true integrations that are built really within the NetSuite context. And if we're holding to that, then a lot of what our kind of singular focus around, the single source of truth and the way that we approach our data management and the way we approach our business processes still rings true, even with the occasional add-on. I think that they'll always be required as long as there are ERPs. There will be, other components and add-ons, and they'll often be the companies that are then acquired by these ERP guys and included in their services. So I think, we just see that as a natural progression. And that was one of the decisions that NetSuite had acquired. I can't remember the companies off the top of my head, but the 2 or 3 companies they acquired, we really liked their services. And so that was some of those were when we took the long-term view on NetSuite, we thought, well, if they're buying those kind of companies that have that depth of experience, then the overall tool's only going to improve its level of service and quality. So that was kind of what we looked at as well.
Yeah, I guess I'd add from my perspective, Ben, one of the things we look at and talk to the clients we're working with in the procurement process is understanding those peripheral pieces they may need, and then making sure the ERP product has the right sort of APIs and interface capability to support them.
But also established relationships and proven integrations, because often there's a tick box. Yeah.
But there are still, that integration hasn't happened. And so then you start to rely on the more technical sort of APIs, and there are APIs and there are APIs.
Yeah.
Well, there's one of the little hacks actually, and often NetSuite world is any partner that's got a bundle already that you install into your thing. You can see how many times it's been installed. So you go check that first and make sure you're not client number 3, and then otherwise you're all.
Yep.
Whatever your system is, you figure out how to know whether you're the guinea pig or not.
Yep. Exactly.
I would also say it's a good one of the things that we didn't have. It's the kind of the next shiny, it's the kind of shiny car mentality of the next shiniest thing is the most exciting. And one of the processes we went through just due to being tight on cash flow a couple of years ago was really looking at what in our current set of tools are we underutilizing, and we've gone back and really consolidated our systems as well. So before you go to an add-on, really exhausting what you have in front of you for the solution is often a good place to start, even if it just crystallizes that yes, going somewhere else is a good idea. We've come back and consolidated and done some things in Office 365 that we were thinking initially we're going to get a partner to do, but we've already paid for those licenses. We've already made that investment. The integration's already there. Our users are already permissioned for that environment. We could have been much more efficient there a lot faster, but we kept looking beyond all the time. So I think it's just always having that balance as well between what you have in front of you that you're already using and what's next as well.
Good stuff. Audience, I've done a poor job of keeping you engaged here in terms of Q&A, but we are coming towards the end. There will be a little bit of time. So if anything has been raised, you've got 4 very worthy minds working in your direction. So ask away with questions that are specific to your environment or perhaps we haven't touched on today. So just the final closing is kind of from each of you. I said 4. I should really have said 3, shouldn't I? I've got a rather good flu, so I've got a good excuse. So, wrapping up advisory that you would give, overall embarking on this journey, what would you say to people to primarily focus their efforts on from the top, Ben?
Yeah, I think the ownership piece, I think so often as business owners, we're in a mode where the busyness is an excuse. And as business managers, you think bringing a consultant or bringing in another party, you're sharing that load. And I would suggest that actually the loads probably should be increased. And the more you take ownership, the better the outcomes you'll get as you approach the ERP thing. And that doesn't look like becoming the expert in a matter of months, but it's consistently coming back to what are the things that's important for your business to grow and keeping on measuring the process you're going through against those different factors. So, and that's your immediate, implementation needs, but also your 3 and 5 year horizon. So if you can really own what that looks like and take a real active interest in how the implementation is going to come to live in your business, not just as a technical solution, but also a cultural opportunity for change, and that's that piece around changing processes, and there's a big hearts and minds piece in there that re-energizes a business if you get it right. So just you as the person leading the process taking a full ownership of what the project can achieve in the business.
Good stuff. Richard.
I'll just have a parting comment representing a vendor. And I think to Ben's point, and I scribbled it down, understand your growth. Understand your growth and evaluate the vendors with the understanding of which vendors can help you with that growth journey. It's very easy to choose a vendor on today's requirements, but we do see growing businesses outgrow the ERP software. So, so my message to the viewers today is to really sit down with your vendors or your shortlist of vendors and really start discussing with them how they're going to support you in your strategic journey.
Okay, Rob.
Yeah, I think for me, my advice usually to clients is really understand the business and the business functionality you're trying to address first and foremost before you start to get out there and talk to the vendors. Otherwise, you'll be sort of attracted to the shiny toy as opposed to what you really need.
Okay, good stuff. All right, folks. Well, that brings things to a close. I don't think we've had any questions submitted, so you do have an opportunity right here. I had one that came up just as you were talking, and we haven't really addressed it specifically. Is the extent to which you lean on the user communities that are around some of these products, and you know, really embed yourself in them, and I guess for advice, but also cooperation in terms of getting the things that you want out of the vendor. Is that something that you've focused on? Ben, I guess you're in their boots and all.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some good communities in and around NetSuite for us, but it's the hidden ones that you don't know about at the beginning that end up being the gems. There's the odd rogue Slack channel and things where people really openly talk about what's going on, and that's where you find the gold, And I think that if there is the thing about it is there's a lot of really passionate people around these products, because if they're not doing well with it, they're having a horrible day. There's no middle ground in an ERP from our experience. You're either really, owning your growth with it, or you're really suffering the weight of a system that big. So, we really enjoy being on the front end of trying to solve problems with other people. And so we're really open with what we share in our environment, and we get that respect back from even competitors. We ring competitors who are on NetSuite and say, how did you solve that problem? And they're only more than happy to talk to us about it, because it's, it's a really positive thing for everybody. So.
Yeah, it's often something people are quite cagey about is that talk to competitors, but it's a different world these days. It's just openness and building of community is you find things that you would just never otherwise find out about.
Yeah, and I think just having the confidence to ask, and cutting through a lot of what people have to say versus what they'd like to say, and if you can get to what they'd like to say, that's always more insightful.
Okay, so Kelvin has raised a question. Thank you, Kelvin. Just talking about not getting too bogged down in the scoping exercise first. Do you then run the risk of being sent down a rabbit hole, chasing a myriad of features that are of no use to you yet? So in other words, focusing your efforts because you've been through your internal scoping exercise, you're better placed. What are your thoughts, Ben, addressed to you?
Yeah, I think I was just really focused on what are the business functions that we do every day. What do we have to deliver to keep the business moving and growing? And anything else was just a wish list. And then there are very nice surprises along the way when we have used more functionality than what we expected. But we keep it really simple and clear, which is, we've got inventory to manage and account for, we've got orders to fulfill and ship, and we kept it that clear. And that meant that we didn't get lost into all the other possible add-ons until we were ready, from a time point of view and just emotionally to take on those whole nother, because that's a real mirror. That's where your complexity starts to come in. So, we just got really clear on what's totally essential to running our business and growing our business, and we just left everything else behind. But what we knew was that was all there when we wanted to look at it. And so that was part of we thought phase 2, but it was probably phase 4 actually. Because the first thing we did once we got up and running is then we re-optimized again our fundamental processes to speed them up, speed up the process of raising a sales order and through to an invoice, and that was more of a priority than opening up more functionality, which is really exciting actually.
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree, Ben. I think it's getting the balance of detail right in this area. Too much, and you run into this problem where you're trying to fit product to the way you do things today, as opposed to getting best practice out of the vendors. But it is a bit of an art, and that's often the role we play, is to help the organisation get to enough detail, but not too much, around what functionality they really need to prioritise.
Okay, brilliant, guys. Okay, so no further questions. I'll move on. Just as you exit the survey, there is a questionnaire that comes up, just it'll look a little bit like that. Please do fill it in, and we do like to hear your thoughts in terms of feedback to make our product better, and also to give the panelists a bit of an idea of how you thought they went. So fill that one in, and one more to go. Thank you to our sponsor, Oracle NetSuite. Has had a good run today with the conversation, but understandably, given Ben's fully embedded in the product and living and breathing it every day. They operate a reasonably significant office out of Sydney, have branches in New Zealand as well, and also work through a partner network. You can find out more at netsuite.com.au. Okay, thank you all for attending. Thank you, panelists, for your time and today and also in preparing. Been a good session. Lots of interesting stuff. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. See you guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.